Go listen to the harmonies. The harmonies are amazing from these four. This is the show where I talk about the artists I love and why I love them and why they played a big part in my musical life. Hi, I'm TC Kirkham, the Kirkham Report. Welcome to Influencers. And this week, this is a band that is so maligned because they had one hit in 1976 that kind of drove everybody crazy because they did overplay it. But in all honesty, they deserve a lot more credit. Um, Perfect four-part harmonies, incredible songwriting, uh, immaculate production in most cases, and they did it all with just four albums. There was a fifth album. I'll talk about that at the end, but it's a different type of album. And it's not a band that you would normally think of when you think of being influenced by, but the truth of the matter is, I love them so much, and I love the varying styles on each album, that I think they deserve a lot better than they get, and I think they deserve a new look by people who don't really know them. It was the American version of ABBA, basically, two couples who made great music together. Jon Carroll, Margot Chapman, and Bill and Taffy Danoff, the Starland Vocal Band. This is their debut album, and of course, this features Afternoon Delight, which is one of the most maligned songs of all time, even though Billboard did name it 20th sexiest song of all time in 2010. Starland Vocal Band was released in 1976, and by the time the first album came out, Bill and Taffy Danoff had already released four albums as a duo. The first two as Fat City, the second two as simply Bill and Taffy. I've managed to snag three of the four of those over the last year. I still haven't listened to all of them. They, of course, were also featured, John Denver with Fat City, on John's breakthrough hit, Take Me Home Country Roads. If you don't know who they are, each one, the one on the far left, that's Jon Carroll, Margot Chapman next to him, Bill Danoff, and Taffy Danoff. At the time, Carroll was only 21 years old. Everybody else was much older than him. Um, this album is an amazing piece of work. It has so many different styles on it that it really blows people's minds. If all you know, and chances are good all you do know, is Afternoon Delight, you need to take a listen to the rest of their music. Um, for the first album, there were four singles off the album. Afternoon Delight was the first. It was a monster hit. California Day. Well, there's three singles, actually. California Day and War Surplus Baby. And Hail Hail Rock and Roll and Ain't It the Fall. And then later on, they did release like a hits back-to-back with Afternoon Delight and California Day. Um, None of those, all those are great songs. Ain't It the Fall is especially great. It's the flip side of Hail Hail Rock and Roll, which is a tribute to old-style rock and roll. But my favorite song on this is their cover version of Paul Simon's classic American Tune. It is done completely a cappella, and it is amazing. Um, Everything on this debut album. I also love Starland, which showcases Jon Carroll's lead vocals beautifully. John, of course, went on to have some solo success in the Washington, D.C. area in the 80s, and they've all continued to perform. But the band was only together from 1976 to 1980, and 81. And the four albums they produced were just fabulous from beginning to end, with one or two exceptions. There is no clunker on this album. It starts with Boulder to Birmingham, a great song called Baby, You Look Good to Me Tonight. American Tune, again done completely a cappella, Starland and California Day. Side B, War Surplus Baby, Starting All Over Again, which also has some a cappella elements to it. Afternoon Delight, Hail Hail Rock and Roll, and Ain't It the Fall. It was produced by Milton Oken with recording engineered and assistant producer was Phil Ramone. Assistant producer was Phil Ramone? What? If you're into harmonies and you haven't heard anything besides Afternoon Delight, check this out because it's definitely good. Another big problem they failed to overcome, and probably rightfully so, at the 1977 Grammy Awards, they won 2 Grammys. Best Vocal Arrangement by a Duo or Group for Afternoon Delight, and Best New Artist. Now, the Best New Artist category has had a jinx on it for a number of years. They frequently do go to artists who deserve them, and Starland Vocal Band definitely deserved it. The trouble was they were going against Boston, and quite a few rock fans were pissed off. Especially since Afternoon Delight was, the only hit that came off this album. Although, they all hit the Hot 100, but that was the big hit. In the summer of 1977, CBS, in their infinite wisdom, yeah, we'll go with that, decided to give them a 4-week summer replacement variety series called the Starland Vocal Band Show. It ran on Sunday nights at 8:30 for the first 2 weeks, and then moved to Fridays at 8:30 following the Keane Brothers show on the last 2 weeks. The show is possibly most known for the fact that it was the first professional comedian gig for David Letterman. Also appearing on that show were Washington humorist Mark Russell and Jeff Altman, pre-Pink Lady and Jeff, thank goodness, and duo Proctor and Bergman. During the making of that show, their second album came out, Rearview Mirror. This is actually used as the opening of their show. Rearview Mirror did not produce any hit singles, but they did do several releases off of it that didn't do well in America, but they did hit the chart in Canada. The first single, Liberated Woman, Fallen in a Deep Hole, I don't think were the strongest songs on the album to release a single. The second 2 choices were much better. The Light of My Life, which features Taffy Danoff on lead vocal, flipped with Prism, which features Margot Chapman's incredible vocal, which peaked at number 36 on the Canadian AC chart, and they followed that up finally with Mr. Wrong and Too Long a Journey, which actually got higher at number 33 on the Canadian AC chart, again produced by Milton Oken. This album has a lot of different elements to it also. St. Croix Silent Night almost has it's a very laid back MOR feel with slightly Jamaican influences or a Caribbean influences. Fallen in a Deep Hole has a lot of great harmony in it. My favorite song on the album is the second single, The Light of My Life, and I love that song and Prism. They're both fantastic. All of their albums come with great lyric sleeves. And let me shrink this down so I can see what I'm doing. And, of course, a great photo from that year. This came out in 1977. And again, they were all released on Song Records, which is now known as Star Records. It was John Denver's label. And he was good friends with all of them. 1978 brought a third album called Late Night Radio. Only the title track was released as a single. And that was actually a song that John had recorded a couple of albums earlier. This is their least known and perhaps their most maligned album. Because, I mean, if you look at AllMusic, if you look at some of these musical review sites, every album they did got trashed as just pablum. I like pablum. I'm sorry, I do. And I love Starland Vocal Band. This album has some of their best stuff on it, including a terrific cover of Ace's Third Rate Romance. Great song called Every Man. Another great song, which it did chart on my chart, but it wasn't officially released as a single, a song called Akron. Late Night Radio, Don't Go to Oregon, The Man Couldn't Get Away, Write Your Life, Please Ms. Newslady, and Friends with You. Again, this has some great artwork. They do great artwork designs on these albums. And as I said, Jon I believe Jon had released Late Night Radio on the previous year. I know he released it at some point. I think it was the previous year. It was before this album came out because I had heard it before this album came out. Again, if you like this kind of music, the problem with Starland Vocal Band, you have to like their kind of music. I do. So many people out there love Afternoon Delight. Too many people consider it a guilty pleasure. I don't consider it guilty because I love it. I love them. I'm not guilty about my love for them. I think that overall, because they are so middle of the road, they're not rock, they're not really pop, they're more of a folky vein going on with pop elements and AC, which is where they had most of their success, except Afternoon Delight. There are people that like this, and I'm one of them. These albums got played constantly when I was in high school. Everybody around me was listening to Kiss and Ted Nugent and heavy metal stuff and Nazareth and Aerosmith, and I was listening to Barry Manilow, Helen Reddy, Starland Vocal Band, Carpenters, ABBA, and disco. I mean, it's just the way it was. Just like right now on my shirt. I'm a big Marco Stunt fan. Everybody else can't stand him when it comes to wrestling. I'm a bigger fan of his music, and we'll hopefully eventually talk about his music here. Maybe in 6 months or so, if he ever gets the damn EP out. I really think that people give Starland Vocal Band the shaft. But there is one major faux pas in their entire catalog, and it's on their fourth and final album from 1980, 4x4. Jon, Margot, Taffy, and Bill, again, left to right, right? Yeah. This album features their first hit in several years, Loving You With My Eyes, which actually did hit the AC chart and the pop chart briefly. And this has some of the best. I mean, I love stuff. I love. I would never. I hate the title of it though. Side 2 begins with a song called "Love." I Thought I Would Never Find Love, which is a great song. And the opening track, of course. And they did kind of move into the 80s with the hairstyles and stuff here. But I have to be honest, and I'm sorry to all of them. They're still out there, still making music or doing stuff around, and still occasionally appearing together, usually with their kids, from what I understand. There is a version on this album of a classic rock song that, when you listen to it on first listen, if you're not familiar with the original song, as I was not, I was 17 when it came out, I think. I liked it. And then the movie came out, the original version was out, and I realized, oh my God, they completely castrated that song. The song is Everybody La Bamba, and it's kind of what you might get if you whitewashed La Bamba. And I hate to say that, because everything else I love by them. But Everybody La Bamba, Bill, for God's sake, what were you thinking? Produced by Barry Beckett, the last album was produced by Milton Okun with Margot Chapman. This is a great album except for that song. I mean, they do pay tribute to Muscle Shoals here, and the great music that came out of that city in the 70s, 80s, and it still does. I mean, we don't hear about it as much, but it still does. God, What were you thinking, Bill? I mean, really. I even now I can't apologize for it because it's fine on its own if you haven't heard the original, but once you hear the original and realize what they've done to it, it's like, oh my God, are you kidding? Um, everything else that they've done, everything that they've done, um, I'm a fan of. I listened to all four albums constantly when I was a kid, as I said, and I wish they had done more. Now, there is a Christmas album that came out in 1980 on their own label. It is called Christmas at Home, and I just recently found it. I didn't even know it existed until I started in the vinyl community. And I'm like, wow. And then I was looking at the prices and I'm like, no, I'm not paying this much for this album. And then I found a copy for $15 and I'm like, I grabbed it. It's not in this collection because I have not yet listened to it. I did not get a chance to put it on over Christmas, but I'm sure it was recorded just a few months after 4x4. I'm sure it's fine. I mean, I can't imagine it not being fine because I love everything else that they do. So, again, this is a short episode, I know, compared to everything else because there's only four albums. Again, 1976's Starland Vocal Band. This has Afternoon Delight, and the other two great songs on here are American Tune and Starland, both non-singles. Excellent, excellent songs. Rearview Mirror, which gets maligned viciously by the online music sites, which has the unbelievable Prism with Margot Chapman's incredible vocal stylings, and also The Light of My Life, and St. Croix Silent Night, two of my favorite songs off this album. Late Night Radio, which is perhaps trashed more than any other album they did by the critics. It has some of my favorite songs on it, including the title track, Akron, and their version of Third Mate Romance. Terrific. And 4x4, which features Love, I Thought I Would Never Find Love, Love Stuff, Loving You With My Eyes, and the amazingly un-PC and completely ridiculous Everybody La Bamba. I love these guys. And I mean, if you like the kind of three-part harmony that ABBA does, if you like the four-part harmony, excuse me, that ABBA does, I mean, really, Starland Vocal Band is an American version of ABBA. Margot and Jon got married during the making of Rearview Mirror, and then both couples ended up divorcing in the early 80s, but they all stayed friends, as I said. And Jon had some solo success. Bill and Taffy and Margot have all gone on their own ways. Margot has done vocals on some jazz stuff that I've noticed. I really think that this not only is this one of the best rock and roll logos ever made. I love their logo. I don't know why it wasn't included on 4x4 or the Christmas album. They're one of the best pop groups ever, and most people don't realize it because they're so stuck on Afternoon Delight. Move past Afternoon Delight. Dig through some of these titles that I've mentioned on these albums. Now, the first two albums, Starland and Rearview Mirror, Starland Vocal Band and Rearview Mirror, were released as a collector's edition on collectibles.com, a division, I believe, of KTAL, in the mid-90s. I don't know if you can still find it or not. It came out when I was working at discjockey.com, so that would have been 1998 to 2000. And at least those two albums are available on Spotify. I don't know about Amazon Music or any of the other services, but if you can track down all of them, I mean, and you like that kind of music, go listen to them. Don't pay attention to the reputation. Don't remember the god awful TV show, and it was as god awful as Captain and Tennille show and Pink Lady and Jeff, if you're familiar with that. It was only a half hour, thankfully, though. And the performances in the show were fine, like Captain and Tennille. The performances were fine. It was most of the comedy sketches were bad, and thankfully they weren't involved with them. They left it to their comedy team. Um, Go listen to their harmonies. The harmonies are amazing from these four. They really have it right down to the last eighth note on every single freaking song they do. Um, I've never heard a band do harmony this well, ever. This kind of band. I mean, not including hard rock or like Def Leppard or Beatles or whatever. This kind of a band, a middle of the road, AC leaning band, even in the 50s, did not do harmonies this well. ABBA came close, not this well. You guys are really getting sick of the 70s stuff, I know. Next week will probably be a very long show because I'm going to get into something I really love, and you guys know I really love it, and we will talk about it next week. In the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed my Influencer series. I'm getting a lot of positive feedback on it. Thank you very much. Even though it's completely different than my influencers are completely different than most of the vinyl community, you don't stop telling me how good the shows are, and I really appreciate that. Now, if you can help me get the subscriber numbers up, I'd really appreciate it. So if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, and please leave a comment. I really enjoy reading what you have to say, good or bad, about the shows. And please spread the word for me. Tell people, hey, you got to go listen to this kid. He's good. Although I'm hardly a kid anymore, but let them know that I'm out here, because I know there's other fans like me. I've met a few of them, Steve, and a few other ones out there. I really hope you like what I do, and I thank you very much for taking the time to watch what I do. Until next time, for Influencers, I'm TC Kirkham. Ciao, baby.